Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and defend America's middle class. So, let's get started. Mr. Broderick Thomas is a friend of mine. He was recently on the podcast right before our presidential election. And he gave us some really, really great thoughts and insights. And I thought it would be really, really outstanding if we could ask him to come back on and give his thoughts post-election. Broderick, how you do?
I'm doing good, General. How are you?
I'm outstanding. Every time you call me General, it makes me laugh.
Absolutely. That's why I do it.
Well, you are good at it. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Broderick is an advertising experienced professional, by the way. He focuses on digital media. His skills are about digital strategy, sales, and management. And he's also president of the Black Brick Society, of which I am a member. So, with all that said, he is very qualified to talk about the things that we want to talk about, specifically politics. So, Broderick, are you ready to go?
Let's go, sir.
All right. Whoa. First of all, the presidential election. We know how it turned out. Trump won. Trump won in an electoral landslide. If you had been Miss Harris's campaign manager, what would you have done differently?
Man, that is such a loaded question. To be quite honest, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would have told her not to run. Um, and there's several reasons for that. One, I don't think she was qualified. I don't think she was ever qualified, even for the VP position. When they sent her down to deal with the border, she showed a lack of a skill set to be able to execute something of that magnitude. And she failed at that miserably. My other thing was I think that she was up against it from the beginning because she was never nominated, right? Like, well, I shouldn't say she wasn't nominated. She didn't win primaries, right? She was not voted into that candidacy. It was handed to her. And in my mind, that is almost illegal, almost criminal behavior, right? I feel like if I were a Democrat, I would have been offended that this person was forced on me, even though I had already made my choice. And if you say that my choice is no longer a valid option, then give me a new choice. Don't just hand me someone. And I think that a portion of the Democratic Party was moved by that. They were angry at that. Um, and then the third thing is she struggles to be genuine, in my opinion. Um, Depending on who she's in front of at any given time, you don't know if she's going to be black today, if she's going to be an Indian today, if she's going to be a Valley girl today. Like you just never know. And I find that to be disingenuous on all fronts. And I think most people felt that way about her. There was a portion of the electorate that saw her as, hey, this is an opportunity to have the first female president, biological female, that is, female president. And so they had to get behind that. And I understand that because I felt that way with Barack Obama. You know, hey, man, we have an opportunity to allow a black man to become the president of the United States. As a black man, I felt at that time that it was my duty to vote for him. So I did. So I get the feminine movement behind that. But I think anybody that was paying attention to our country, to the dynamics of what was going on in the political arena, just the status of our well-being as United States citizens. If you were watching any of those things, you knew that she did not have a plan. She did not have the skill set to be able to turn this thing around and get our country back on track. So so I say that half-heartedly joking, but I think uh, my advice would have been don't run because I mean, as you know, I work in politics. I'm the vice chair at the Alexandria Republican unit here. I sit on the 8th District Board of Virginia for the Virginia GOP district. So I'm involved with people that are coming through as candidates for local and state elections all the time. I have three things for them, and I've said this to you, sir. If you're gonna run, I need you to have three things. One, you need to have a solid platform that will play well with your constituency. Two, you need to have a team, about five people that you absolutely have to have. And three, you need to have money or a way to raise money. If you don't have those three things, you should not be running. So I don't pick on Vice President Harris when I say I would have told her not to run, because I tell anybody that if the circumstances aren't right for them to be able to have a path to victory. So that would have been my advice.
You mentioned money a few minutes ago, and she finished her campaign having spent over $1 billion. And not
Billion and
only
a half.
that, yeah, and she is now $20 million in debt. And the word coming out of her camp is that her staffers haven't been paid. They're upset. And in the meantime, she gave Beyonce $10 million for an appearance. She gave Oprah money, millions of dollars. She gave Eminem, several people. Turns out Al Sharpton got $500,000 and several other luminaries. And it was almost like the DNC thought that if you just get some black people out there butt shaking, the rest of them will come along. And what's your thoughts on that whole process of literally what I call buying votes?
Well, and it's a couple of things because you and I talked about this, I believe, on the last time I was on your podcast, is that it seems like the Democratic Party now has an agenda when it comes to Black America to entertain us as opposed to engage us. And I find that insulting,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I don't care if you bring Beyonce out on stage or Megan Thee Stallion or Eminem or any of those people. Those are people I listen to for entertainment. But when I'm talking about the political spectrum that will have an impact on my life, I need you to have a conversation with me. I need you to engage what's going to make it better for me in order for me to vote for you. So the entertaining part of it doesn't work. And then to take all of that as far as being able to buy votes, I was very pleased with the fact that it didn't work because that reestablished my faith that America is not up for sale, at least not wholeheartedly. But I mean, if that's all it would have taken was to have a few entertainers in front of the communities that they were targeting to have won that election, my faith would have been all but nil at that point because it would just be like, what are we doing right now, as far as our country, and so I hope that in the next cycle that they take a different approach. But my gut feeling is that they won't. They've been promising at least Black America. And I can speak on that because I am one. I hope that in the next cycle that they would get that right. But for the last 40 years, they've been promising and promising and promising and still no dance. Remember, we talked about that. So I'm not opposed to listening to a qualified Democrat. If somebody comes to the table and you have an agenda, you have some thoughts, I probably won't agree with your philosophy, but I'm willing to listen to a viable candidate. But so far, what they've showed me, the options always make me say, not even possible. I won't even consider it.
One of the things that she used to say over and over again was she was unburdened by what has been. Now, as a military person, both you and I spent significant time in the United States Air Force. That means communism. Most people don't understand. And we were
Marxism.
beaten over the head with Marxism and Marxist theory. And we expected to have to fight against that. But what does that mean to you, unburdened by what has been?
It means exactly what we just said, Marxism and communism, right? Because what these people were talking about when they said that was taking everything that had happened in their past, right? And pretty much erasing history, and then rebuilding a new society that was not even associated with that, right? And so that way they didn't have to be haunted by that. And so I thought it was interesting that she was using that dialogue in this country because what you see happening or has been happening as of late is a all inclusive society. Everybody has to be included in everything. You have to be able to appeal to anybody's desires. You know, somebody wants, if you got a physical biological male that wants to identify as a female, we now making pronouns for people. I know what he is. She and her still don't mean nothing to me. I know what he is, right? So, you know, you get into this thing where we're trying to change society and make it this socialist type place. And it literally what it looked like was they wanted to change what our country looks like and erase our history. We see it right here in Alexandria. The mayor of the former mayor of Alexandria initiated this program to go through and remove all of the street names of former Confederate heroes or former Confederate generals, as they call them, or they call them heroes, but these former generals. And they wanted to remove all the street names and replace them. Why are you erasing history? If you take those names down, those generals still existed and they still wanted to have slavery. That's not going to change it at all. But the idea that you want to try to erase it, again, I just can't understand that. You know, I was in Richmond in 2020 because I was still living there then, and they pulled down the Stonewall Jackson monument. You could pull it down, but Stonewall Jackson still rode these streets and was fighting for a new country that would allow slavery. It doesn't change the history. So I go down off on that tangent, but that's what that means. We're going to erase all of that so that no one can have access to it, won't have any memory of it, so that we can build this new thing that'll be this almost utopian society where everybody's included and all is for all. I mean, but I hope Americans pay attention to that, because in a communist country or in a communist society, they take everything and do equal distribution. So the doctor basically makes the same thing as the waitress at the restaurant, you know, and that's a little far-fetched, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. They want to have equal distribution of all goods and services, assets and resources in the country. And so when you get that, that's what communism looks like. So again, that whole unpardoned thing, no, sir.
You know, it's funny. In my studies, I've never found any place on this earth where communism/Marxism works. It always ends up with millions upon millions of deaths, and it just doesn't work. People don't talk about the Cultural Revolution in China, where at least 10 million people died. And I think that's kind of where she was going with this. And it wasn't just her. I mean, she was just being manipulated by people ahead of her. But I got another question for you.
Well, but one more quick thing on that, though. I
Uh-oh.
thought that was interesting that they wanted to introduce that thought process, because America has a stain in her history, and it is slavery of the Black Americans.
There you go.
Right. And so to me, that was one attempt at saying we want to remove this. We want to remove this guilt. We want to remove this memory. That is part of that unburdened thing that we can now move forward and not have to think about that anymore. We don't want to hear y'all talk about it. We don't want to hear y'all gripe and moan about it. We want to just get past. No, ma'am.
No,
Not
no,
my
no, no.
wife.
When you start changing history, and it's funny, in our generation, the book 1984 and the book Brave New World were both part of the curriculum in high school. You had to read those books in order to graduate from high school. And now these kids don't know anything about those books because they're not part of the curriculum. And, we were talking earlier about what it takes to be an aware citizen. Those are the kinds of things we need to pay attention to the school board, and we pay attention to the trends in the community and fight those things if we have to legally. Because the issue of the day is, I really believe that people that were funding her campaign literally were communists and Marxists.
Right. And in the meantime, while they're removing the books of the true history, they're trying to slide in books to 8-year-olds for sex education.
There you go. There you go. So
Yeah,
we can't
look,
have that.
as the general would say, yeah, I said it.
Yeah, I said it. Look, I tell you what, man, I enjoy your company. I know you got other things to do. It's getting a little bit late, but I always like to give you an opportunity to say what's on your mind. The audience is awaiting your proclamation. So tell people what's on your mind.
I don't know about a proclamation, but I will talk about my current state of mind for anyone that wants to listen to it. Um, I am excited about the results of the election. I've often said that when Donald Trump was president before, those were the best 4 years financially for me in my life. I expect that to repeat itself. I've actually in the last 2 weeks having people call me because I'm an avid investor as well. A lot of times I manage some investments and things like that. I'm heavily into cryptocurrency. And so I've had people call and saying, "Hey, Broderick, what do we do now? And what are you looking at? How can we make this deal?" Like people are excited about the movement of money again, you know? And so with that being said, I am taking a spiritual approach because I believe that God is setting his people up to be able to do a great thing. So in this season, I believe it's a season of harvest, and that if there's money to be made, we should make it. We should capitalize on it, invest it well, store it well, because we don't know what's going to come on the other side of this next 4 years. And so, for those of us that he has set in the positions to do so, we should prepare ourselves to be able to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And so in this time, I believe it's just a great season. I'm excited about what's about to happen. I own a couple of businesses. I'm excited about those things. Um, Actually starting to do some work for the Republican Party to take a look at what this party will look like 10 years from now and begin to prepare for that. I love good quotes that help me maneuver life. And one of the ones that I love is from Wayne Gretzky, who's always said that I don't play where the puck is, I play where the puck is going to be. And so I take a very forward looking approach to my businesses, to my investments. I don't do make moves or take actions for things that are happening now. I take it for what I think is going to be there in 5 years, 3 years, maybe. And I position myself for that if the data suggests or makes me believe that certain things are going to happen. You mentioned earlier the electric cars, the EVs. And if you remember, President Biden made a proclamation that by 2030, I think was the year that all government vehicles would be electric vehicles, would be EVs. Okay, that's 350,000 vehicles in the government fleet across this country. Where you want to put your money at, right? Just some things to think about. Matter of fact, I'm investing heavily in Tesla right now because the new president's best buddy happens to be Elon Musk. Where you gonna put your money at for the next 5 years? Like that's
I hear
trading
you.
$300 right now. I can see Tesla being well over 1,000, probably closer to 1,200 in the next 3 to 4 years. So it's things like that. What I mean when I say play where the puck is going to be. But as far as again, I go off on tangents, so I hope your audience forgives me. But as far as what I want to say to them is just be alert. Pay attention to the things that are going on around you. Take the information that's being given to you and process it yourself. Allow your mind to figure out if it makes sense for you. And if it does, act and act aggressively. It's time for us to move forward. It's time for us to get this thing right. And for those that are paying attention, it's going to be a good season. So I hope all of us can capitalize off of what's being set up for the next couple of years.
Broderick, I feel a little smarter just by having this conversation with you. Man, how can people reach you if they need to?
Oh man, simple email will always do. It's my name, Broderick, B as in boy, Roderick, at the number three, followed by X as in X-ray, G as in George, Enterprises. So Broderick at 3xgenterprises.com. Always shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to correspond with you.
Broderick, thanks for coming on the program. Give my best to the cats in the Black Brick Society, myself included.
Yes, sir.
And I just
Absolutely.
appreciate having this conversation with you, man. I mean, you have a unique perspective that most people never hear, and you are one of those people that has been there and done that. So I appreciate your time.
Man, I thank you for having me anytime.
All right.
All
Take
right,
care now.
gentlemen. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Fallback Productions and Veterans for America First. Please like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and protect America's middle class. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available as an ebook on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility for ourselves and for our fellow citizens. Thanks for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. We'll see you next week.